Hey everybody, it's Zach. Welcome back to the Heroverse. And guys, I just saw Shazam Fury of the Gods a couple of hours ago. And guys, we have a lot to talk about this movie. Initially, as you guys saw from my trailer reactions for this movie, the trailers weren't doing it for me for this movie. I thought the CGI didn't really look good. I thought it was definitely a big upgrade on the scale of the movie, and I also thought the suits looked better. But in general, I just did not think the trailers looked all that good. And there's a lot riding on this movie and kind of like on what people know about what's going to be happening with the future of this universe and these characters. So I feel like that's also why this movie is supposed to, like, I guess is estimated to I guess, what's the word for it? Bring in a lot more money compared to the first movie. Apparently, this movie is supposed to like underperform more than the first one, because the first one performed way more than apparently this movie is slated out to make, money wise. So there's just a lot of things, riding on this movie of even if this movie was going to be good. And me thinking, okay, the trailers aren't doing it for me, but I really do love the character Mary, played by Grace Caroline. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go see this movie. I have no really expectations for this movie. Let me just go in open-minded and just see what this movie is. I at least think I'm going to have a good time like I did with the first movie, because I own the first movie and I really enjoyed the first movie. Even though I hate the suit in this movie, because you could clearly tell like it's just all padding in the suit. Whether Zachary Levi and anybody else tells you otherwise, we all know it was padding in the suit, and it looked ridiculous. And just like the first movie didn't have as big as the budget as this movie does. Like I said, the CGI in some sequences in this movie worked. A lot of this stuff didn't. But overall, I had a really good time with this movie. This movie was a pleasant surprise. It's definitely DC's first win of this year out of, like, I think the three other projects we're getting this year, with the Flash movie, Blue Beetle, and I think Aquaman. I think Aquaman's this year, or maybe it's next year. I'm not quite sure. But I definitely think that this is the first win of DC this year, and definitely a pleasant surprise win, like I said, because the trailers just weren't doing it for me, even though I really liked the first movie. Of course, this will be a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen the movie, definitely go see the movie and come back here and hear what I got to say about the movie, because I'm going in full spoilers with this movie. And definitely there are an end credit and a post credit and an end credit of this movie. I don't think I really was expecting that, but it ended up happening anyways, because we got an end credit in the first movie, but I don't think we got a post credit in the first movie. Or maybe we did, and we got both. But initially I was not thinking, but I stayed there and I did see them, and it kind of makes me wonder, okay, like, what the hell does this mean going forward? Because we all know that with James Gunn and Peter Safran kind of taking over the DC, taking over, like, DC Studios, it kind of makes me wonder, okay, like, and we all know that things are getting fully, like, rebooted, or some things are getting rebooted and some things aren't. With the Flash movie happening, I think it's gonna be like a full reboot. It's kind of hard to tell if it's gonna be a full reboot, or if things, or if some characters will stay and some things will be the same, or some things will get rebooted, or if everything will get rebooted. It's kind of confusing right now, and I feel like maybe in weeks to come, James Gunn will come out and explain the end credit and the post credit of the movie, because it kind of made me confused. It made me interested, but it made me confused at the same time. I definitely would love to see more of these characters and where they could go with this franchise, but I don't know if that's what's going to end up happening or not, because we know that a lot of people aren't coming back. With Jason Momoa I think isn't playing Aquaman anymore, and he's going to be playing Lobo. Apparently we're not getting Gal Gadot anymore as Wonder Woman. Henry Cavill's not coming back, and Ben Affleck isn't coming back after the Flash movie. So there's kind of like, we know that the recasts are going to be coming, but we don't know who's going to be staying or not, between like Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa, if they're going to be staying those characters or not. Especially after this movie, it kind of makes me think that, is there a chance that this character, one of the characters I mentioned, could be in the future of the DC universe? I don't really know. But like I said, going into this movie, I had an overall blast of a time. Like I said, it was a very, very funny, fun action movie. It didn't disappoint me. I definitely think it's on par with the first movie, if not a little bit better than the first movie. I definitely like the villain better in the first movie with Mark Strong's Doctor Savannah. I think I think that's the name of the villain in the first movie. Yeah, I think it's Doctor Savannah, if I'm correct. Or is it heavy? I think it's Savannah. I think it's Dr. Savannah. If I gotta check that real quick, because I want to make sure. If I'm correct on that. I think it's Doctor Savannah, but I just want to make sure if I'm correct or not. Um, yeah, Doctor Savannah. Yeah, Savannah. Um, but yeah, I really enjoyed Mark Strong's character in the first movie a lot better. But I think the end fight of this movie is a lot stronger than the first movie's fight. I had like goosebumps at the kind of like a little bit of goosebumps at the end fight of this movie. Because something really cool happened at the end of this movie, which I can't wait to talk about. But the villains of this movie, which of course is Lucy Liu, and of course Helen Mirren, I thought they did a pretty damn good job as villains of this movie, playing the Daughters of Atlas. And everything we saw in the trailers is essentially what we saw in this movie. So kind of a lot of the movie was spoiled due to like trailers, and especially the TV spot that recently came out, which which we'll talk about like later, like later down the line of my review, because that was kind of like a big spoiler, which I still kind of gasped. But even though I kind of saw the TV spot on the CW like a while ago, I was like, okay, like I saw it, I heard about it, but I actually saw it on the CW. I really thought they would take the TV spot off in general, because I can't believe they gave that spoiler away in a TV spot. But, I thought they, like I said, Helen Mirren and Lucy Liu did a pretty damn good job as, I know that one is, I think it's Eclipso is Lucy Liu's character, or Calypso is Lucy Liu's character, and, Hespera is Helen Mirren's character. And like I said, I thought they did a pretty damn good job in this movie. Of course, they want revenge, on the wizard, and also on the whole Shazam family for taking the powers of the gods, or the powers of the gods and of their father away from him, and the wizard killing their father and pretty much taking their powers and giving it to a whole bunch of children. They're essentially after them because of that reason, because they want to get the powers back, and to do so they need to get the staff fixed, which of course is the wizard's staff that I guess was gifted to their father Atlas, from what my understanding is. But like he ended up taking it away, the wizard, and taking Atlas's powers and a whole bunch of other people that Atlas granted powers away as well, to give it to the champion, which of course are champions of Earth with the Shazam family. So I did like the opening sequence where like they're there in the museum, they find the staff broken, they end up pretty much manipulating a whole bunch of people to like attack one another, and it ends up like it's like a kind of like a mind control that keeps on going with the other. Like it goes to one person, they whisper it into the other, and then they're controlled and they go after the other. And then of course was it Helen Mirren's character, which again is it's so hard, like a Hespera, she ends up pretty much turning everybody to stone, which I thought was a pretty cool thing to show how much they're like, how angry they are, and how much they're willing to like take out like and take out or kill anybody that stands in their way about getting the powers back. And essentially they also are after the seed of the Tree of Eternity, which I guess they want to rebuild their home with. I guess that's not a way for them to rebuild their home, is through the Seed of Eternity. And I definitely think that I kind of spoiled it, because where we have Calypso, which is played by Lucy Liu, we kind of see in the trailer, I kind of put it right away together, is that Lucy Liu was the only one at the end of the trailer that was fighting in the big battle sequence, which was the final battle of the movie between Billy and of course Calypso, where Calypso was on the dragon's big fight sequence at the baseball park. We saw that, and I was kind of like, okay, then this clearly shows that Helen Mirren's character is going to die at some point in the movie. And of course Calypso ends up betraying Hespera, which of course is Helen Mirren's character, and pretty much ends up like killing her, and ends up pretty much going off script on the fact of them going there to get the powers back, but also going there to get the seed of the Tree of Eternity, and then going back home, and then that's that. She kind of goes off script and says, no, we're going to build our home here, and we're going to teach these humans that, because it was the human wizards that ended up taking the powers from their father and taking the powers from everybody and all the gods. Pretty much, she wants to teach them a lesson, ends up going off book. Well, again, Hespera, and of course, Rachel Ziegler's character, I think it's Anthea, which, if I'm correct, which I really loved Rachel Ziegler's character. She was definitely a highlight of this movie. She's a new character that I think like I would love to see more of in this Shazam movies if we get a Shazam 3, which again I'm not quite sure, but like I feel like the end credits kind of allude to a third movie. She definitely was a highlight of this movie. Great acting, and I loved kind of like the love story between her and Freddy. I mean, and even though she was there, like she only wanted to get close to Freddy because Freddy, had lunch with one of the champions, and they knew that, and that's why Hespera and Calypso end up, sending, Anthea to go get close to Freddy to find out where the champions are to get the power back, but to also get the seed of the Tree of Eternity back so they can rebuild their home. So they have to have Anthea get close to Freddy so they can get the powers back and also get the seed of the Tree of Eternity. And of course, she ends up starting to like him, but she ends up finding out that he is one of the champions, and that was a very interesting where it's pretty much, it gets to the point where, like, she was willing to let out the wizard and let out Freddy to get them away because she realized that I don't want to destroy your world, and that's what they're planning on doing, and I don't want you to get hurt. And and you kind of saved me in the school when you thought when those bullies were kind of trying to like show me around the school. You kind of was the hero that came in and saved me, and I'm gonna do the same thing for you. And I thought that was cute, where like Freddy kind of saved her from the bullies and pretty much like and took her on the tour of the school, and she said hero. And of course, he did the same thing by, or she did the same thing by saving him and the wizard before, they had no more use for Freddy trying to figure out where the champions were so they could get the powers back and stuff. So they were about to kill them, but of course, Anthea saved Freddy and the wizard, and of course I love when he said hero back to her. It was just cute seeing their love story and kind of seeing them like essentially like end up getting together at the end of the movie. But it gets to the point where, like, again, like, where, Calypso ends up portraying, what was it? I forget. It was, like, I think it's, Hespera ends up portraying Helen Mirren's character by, like, getting on that big-ass, like, dragon and ends up, like, skewering her in the chest and killing her. It gets to the point where, like, she's like, oh, you betrayed us. That's not what we're here to do, is, build our world here, and you want revenge on the humans. We were supposed to just get the seed and go back home. It gets to the point where, like, again, Calypso ends up taking the powers away from Anthea because that staff is able to take the powers away because that's the same staff that granted the Shazam family their powers and granted Billy his powers. And I want to give a shout out to Asher Angel because he really stepped up in this movie. You can really tell that a lot of the kids in this movie, you can totally tell that they're seasoned more. They're not as, of course they're older now, they're not as young as they were in the first movie, so they're acting, and because they have a lot more acting projects under their belt. A lot of the kids in the movie, they're now like pretty much grown adults at this point. You know what I mean? Like, so it was just really cool seeing how good, like how much Asher Angel's like acting has improved, and seeing how much because I really felt I really felt for Billy in this movie way more than I did in the first movie, because he's like the glue that's keeping everybody together while they all want to do their own things in this movie, because that's what he's struggling with in this movie. Is he's struggling with abandonment, and he doesn't want to feel like the family's abandoning him on wanting to do their own thing. So you can really tell that he's attached and doesn't really want to let go, while they want their own space and they want to do their own things. Especially Freddy wants to do his own heroing. He doesn't like feeling like he hates feeling like he's kind of being held back by everybody. And you can totally tell that everybody hates getting together to go save the world. You could totally tell about that on the bridge when they kind of told, like, when Billy and when Freddy were telling everybody, like, oh, because Freddy was getting ready to just walk out the door and save the bridge by himself if it wasn't for Billy, and then like, oh, what are you listening to? And saying it's either all of us or none of us. Like, that's how it's gonna go. Like, that's the rule. It's all of us or none of us. And you could totally tell, like, a lot of the kids don't want to go, especially Mary. Mary wants to, like, she wanted to go to college, but she didn't go to college in this movie. Like, she wanted to go in the last movie. So it's like, ever since she got powers, it's like, she's been with the family, and she kind of regrets not going to college and meeting people her own age. And you can really tell that everybody just wants to do their own thing, and no one's listening to Billy. And even though it's like, I feel like it's also a part of the fact that Mary said, I understand that you have abandonment issues of your mother abandoning you and stuff like that, and you think that's what we're doing, but that's not what we're doing. Where we want to do our own thing. And you know what I mean? You just need to give us, you need to like chill out. You're very hyper on the whole subject of us, of like controlling us or whatever, and how we do things and blah 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 blah. and I felt bad for Billy because it's like, he wants to be a leader, but also it's like he is worried about, you know, was it Mary's like, I understand what this is all about too, where you have abandonment issues, and our foster parents' bills are kind of backing up right now, and you're getting to the point where you're turning 18 next month, and you're kind of aging out of the system. So I know that you're really trying to hold us close and really trying to keep us together, but you just need to like be prepared for that, to the point where like I need to get I have to work. And of course Billy's like, you shouldn't have to work because Wonder Woman doesn't have a job. You guys should all just be dedicated to being heroes. But in reality, it's like they're just so focused on like, yeah, they got heroes, but yet that's not stopping their lives on them wanting to have their own lives and do their own thing. Where for Billy, it's just that's all he has is them all being together, superheroing. So I loved that struggle in the movie, where it's like it makes sense for his character because he has had abandonment issues. But once he found this family, he thought they'd all be together because the cave is called, I think, the Cave of Eternity, and they all have these powers of Shazam, and he thought we'd all be together forever doing this. But they all want to do their own thing, and it's kind of like he has to deal with that on like they all want to do their own thing, and that was just made me feel for Billy's character in this movie. And we didn't really see Asher Angel very much in this movie. We probably saw him maybe 3 times this movie, in the beginning, I'm going to say in the middle, and then in the end for a minute, and then that was it. I would say we saw him a lot more in the first movie, but of course that's because he didn't really know how to control his transformation into Shazam, so it made a lot more sense. And I figure, it made a lot more sense for him to be in the Shazam form in this movie because he wants to be Shazam more, and I think he wants to be Billy in this movie, and I feel like you really see that on him wanting to just focus on all of them being heroes, because I feel like also when they're heroes, he probably feels like that's when they're all closest, because like kind of like the what's it called, the kind of like the history of the chairs of all of them being together and in the Cave of Eternity, and them all having the powers of Shazam, and he probably thought that this is like this will last forever, and that's the only moment where I feel like we all can really be together. But it's like I said, they want to do their own things. So like I said, I really felt like Asher Angel was definitely a standout. I really felt attached to what he was going through in this movie, while Freddy wants to kind of just do his own thing and kind of he kind of wants to like be the best superhero he can be, but he feels like he's kind of like a fraud initially. He kind of feels that way too, where he feels like who am I kidding? You know what I mean? Like I'm not this hero that I claim that I am, and all that stuff. While like Billy feels like also he's kind of he was, since he can't like lead the team, and he feels like he's kind of asking other people how to lead the team. He kind of feels like the wizard chose the wrong person. You know what I mean? He feels like he chose wrong, so he kind of has to realize that the wizard chose right. So it's kind of like he's on this journey of being like I know, like he has to be on this journey of like trying to find his own what is it? Trying to find his own belief that he is the leader. He needs to believe in himself. So he's kind of on that journey in the movie as well, where he feels like the wizard chose wrong. Like the wizard didn't choose the right champion. He has to kind of come to terms with the fact that he did choose the right champion. He needs to see that within himself, that the wizard did choose right, that he is the champion. He has the heart of a champion. So that was really cool seeing that as well. But like I said, guys, like the best action sequence definitely wasn't the bridge sequence. I liked it. It was cool and all. The other sequences, of course, when the Daughters of Atlas take Freddy's powers away, and that's when, of course, Anthea ends up finding out that Freddy is one of the champions that's connected to the other champions. So automatically, it puts Freddy in the line of fire, and she didn't want that. She's like, I'm hoping Freddy's nowhere near here before Calypso, and before I always forget the other Helen Mirren's characters, and before Hespera, take the powers away from Freddy, and then she ends up finding out it's Freddy, and of course she ends up taking him to find out the other champion's name, so that way they can find it easier to find them and take their powers away. And it was funny because they end up like, there was a lot of like, I feel like nods to Harry Potter kind of in this movie. There was a scene that felt very Harry Potterish, where it's like it's a secret like room full of like books about the gods that's like hidden in the caves that only I think Eugene knows about. I think it's Eugene if I'm correct, or it's Pedro that only Pedro knows about. Um, and that was very interesting because like Pedro was kind of using this one pen, which they called it. I think that they called the pen's name, like I think it's like, I don't know. I think they called it like Jeffrey or I think it was like Jeffrey they called it or something. I have to actually look it up because like, or Steve, they called it Steve, the pen like Steve or something. And it was cool because this pen was just writing on its own. It reminded me a lot of Harry Potter when like they have like the feathers that write on their own, and like the books were flying around the room. So it felt very Harry Potterish. It gave me like Harry Potter vibes with the magic side of learning about the Daughters of Atlas, and like Steve having like knew where the books were that they needed. And it was funny because like while they have Freddy captured, it was very funny because they're trying to get information from Freddy. And of course, Calypso was able to do the whisper thing to force Freddy to give up the names of the fellow champions and other, to get the powers. And it's funny, while he was resisting, they were all trying to come up with an idea and asking Steve, like, okay, like, this is what I want you to write. And mind you, Steve doesn't stop at the point where, like, okay, like, at period. He keeps writing when they keep talking. So there's a funny moment in here where, it just cracks me the hell up where was it Billy is telling like saying Darla's name, Pedro's name, Eugene's name, Mary's name, just saying it after like, because the pen Steve is picking up Billy saying, oh, good one guys, like good one Darla, good one Mary, and is literally the pen is writing down their names. And it was super funny to me, that sequence. It was just super funny that the pen just did not stop after periods. It would just keep going and keep writing. I thought that was funny. And it was just a funny moment where, like, while he's suffering, trying to not give their names up, Billy in this pen, Billy wasn't, and everybody's like, mainly Billy keeps messing up. And mainly Billy was the reason that everybody's name got called out. And I was like, that was the funniest moment. And the point of like, oh guys, good one guys. Oh, like who wants a red Gatorade or whatever, like, or like, oh yeah, like who wants a red Gatorade? And she's like, what's Gatorade? That's what Helen Mirren, or what that's what Lucy Liu's character said. Calypso, she's like, what's Gatorade? I was like, it was super funny. Like jokes like that had me just cracking up. And of course, the wizard could not remember Freddy's name for the life of him, so he just kept calling him like, he called him like Eddie. He called him freebies. He called him the freebies thing had me crying when he said freebies. I was like, what do you mean freebies, bro? I was like, that's so funny. So the moments like that, there was a lot of jokes that stuck, but it was so dumb when the moment where like we cut to like Billy, or like it was earlier in the movie, and Billy's like after he was done talking to the one pediatrician dude, which we saw in the trailer, he's like, oh, I need to save a hostage situation, and it was him playing a game, and he's like, I suck balls. I suck balls at this, and I was like, oh my god, bro, like what the. So they definitely weren't like up the jokes with like teenage dumb jokes, which I feel like just shit like that didn't stick, where I was like, this is just so dumb to me. Like the whole, I suck balls at this. That's come around a couple of times, that joke in the movie. And then the other one, I forget what it was. Well, like the one where he's like, it's all about family, when he's trying to like, set a trap for Helen Mirren's character. I thought was kind of dumb when there was like the all about family joke. I was like, that just didn't stick in the trailer, and it's not sticking here. But also there was one moment where like, they all lose their powers to the point where and Billy's the only one that has his powers left, and it was a moment where like they need unicorns, because unicorns, I guess, are like the most feared creature, godlike creature, and of course Darla loves unicorns, and I guess the only thing that's able to like the only thing that unicorns love, or I guess gods love in general, I think it was mainly unicorns, is nectar, and the only nectar that they could find, or Darla could find, was Skittles. And she was obsessed with unicorns, so there's a moment where like she ends up feeding the unicorn Skittles, and while all these creatures are running around the world right now, running around Earth, pretty much causing mayhem around San Francisco, that's when Darla ends up feeding the unicorn Skittles, and pretty much they're all on unicorns now. And she says, taste the rainbow, mother. and it cuts out. I could have swore we saw that in a trailer or a TV spot. Like I said, they gave a lot away in the trailers, but I still enjoyed myself watching this movie. Definitely, like I said, like it was a fun time, and I thought it was. Like I said, I at least thought it was going to be as good of a time, if not a better of time than what I at least thought it was going to be a good time like the first movie was. I didn't think it was going to be as good as it was. I didn't think it was going to be better than the first movie, which I think it just by a sliver beats the first movie. So I will be getting this movie on probably 4K, probably, or just like Blu-ray, one or the other. But I will probably be buying this movie. So that's like the bright side about this movie is I really enjoyed it, and I do think I will be buying this movie. But like at the end of this movie, well, they're using the unicorns to like kill all these like creatures terrorizing San Francisco, which, mind you, in this movie, like, they were not pulling their punches about like killing people, because the one moment where like the creatures end up like bursting out of like their eggs, this one creature that had like a scorpion horn pierced this lady in the back and threw her. I was shocked that they were just like showing deaths in this movie. I was like, oh my god. It was really disturbing with like when Calypso's character on the roof like hypnotized one of Freddy's teachers and made his teacher walk off the roof, and you heard the splatter of guts. That was horrifying. I was like, oh my god. I really felt for Freddy in that moment, and I could really feel I was kind of terrified in that moment of like, oh my god, these are pretty damn good villains. I'm not gonna lie, like, this is pretty good. Would I say they're memorable villains? Hell no. Because it got to the point where, like I said, Helen Mirren's character dies. Hespera, or Hespera, and it gets to the point where I was like, oh my god, like I don't really care for Lucy Liu's like Calypso. I was like, she kind of got to the point where I was like, you kind of feel like, what is it? The girl from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Rita. You kind of get that Rita Repulsa vibes of how, like, because you like she just felt very Rita Repulsa, to the point at the end of the movie when she was on the dragon and she was like, trying to fight Billy while Billy has the staff, and he kind of in like the dome, like, because they end up putting the dome, like this like dome over San Francisco, and they want to like punish them as the god, I guess, as the wizards punished the gods. So it's kind of like, this is a revenge thing where like Hespera ends up putting a force field over them and stops it, while Freddy and them end up going, like, they end up capturing Freddy, but that ends up coming around again where like we think Helen Mirren's Hespera is dead. It gets to the point where like, Freddy, where Billy's like, I need you to help me stop her. You know what I mean? I know that you don't like what your sister is doing right now, that she kind of went off script and she wants to like destroy our world when that's not what you wanted to do. I need your help. I need you to at least do one last thing for me, because, he wanted to blow up the staff, but also he wants to like, but they would take out the dragon and take out, Calypso, with it, I guess the staff would pretty much take out him, the dragon, and also Calypso all at the same time. So he wanted Hespera, her last final breath, to be putting the dome and condensing it in the stadium, in the baseball stadium in San Francisco. So I thought that was really cool, where he was gonna like sacrifice himself. He's like, this is what I need to do. I need to let you fly. I need to let you guys fly now. It's like, I was afraid of you guys, of me kind of, you guys kind of abandoning me, but I know that's not what you guys were trying to do. I need to let go now. I need to do this. This is what this is why I was champion. And he just goes on saying like, this is what I gotta go do. So he goes fly off to go fight Calypso and the dragon all by himself, which that was the coolest moment of this movie, when his eyes, like, he got so strong with the lightning, and he really proved, like, Hespera that he is a god. He has the power of a god. He is God, because she kept saying like, oh, you're a child that wants to play God, but she really at that moment saw how strong he was, because she was looking out in the distance and saw the lightning that he had and how strong he was with the lightning against Calypso and the dragon, and she's like, oh my god, wow, it was a god. Or he did really had the heart of a god, and I thought that was really cool, that moment. But I got to the moment where like his eyes were glowing. I was like, oh my god, this is like the comics. This shit's cool, because he was not that strong in the first movie. His eyes didn't glow. So it got to the point where he got so strong his eyes were glowing, because I feel like that was like, it was also the moment when he knew in his heart he was the champion, and he knew what he was doing was right. On this was like what you got to do as a hero. and he really did the true actions of a hero. And I feel like maybe that's why he got strong to the point where like his eyes were glowing, like the comics. I just thought that was really cool, and thought it was really cool. Where like again, we saw this all in the trailer where he flies in the dragon, ends up like when he flies towards the dragon, says Shazam. That was in the movie, and that's pretty much how he ends up killing the dragon, ends up exploding the dragon, ends up killing, Calypso. It ends up killing him when he says Shazam. That was really sad. I was like, oh my god, they actually, because at that moment, like he knew that he had to sacrifice himself to stop Calypso and stop the demons running around San Francisco and killing everybody, and stopping her from destroying the planet and destroying San Francisco and pretty much the world. I was like, I really like felt for those moments. I got really teary eyed towards the end of the movie, and seeing him laying there, Billy. I was like, oh my god, I'm actually like upset about this. Like I'm actually like sad about this. I was like, oh my god, like DC did it. I was like, shit. Like I don't, because I'm not gonna lie. Like I said, like I think the Shazam movies were probably the only movies besides like the Suicide Squad movie that I know, like not James Gunn Suicide Squad, but the other Suicide Squad, the end of that movie kind of made me teary-eyed as well. I think the Shazam movies are the only second movies of the DC Universe movies that I've actually like teared up on. And this movie, I definitely think made me tear up a lot more than the first movie did at the end, just seeing him sacrificing himself, him laying on the ground, and them pretty much burying him. And that was just like really upset because Rachel Zegler's character, on how she doesn't have her powers anymore in this movie because Calypso took them away from her. It was at the point where like there was nothing left to bring Billy to life again. Like the staff was drained after he kind of supercharged it to destroy Calypso and destroy the dragon. So it's kind of like there was nothing left to bring him back to life, and there was nothing left to give Anthea back her powers. Like there was just nothing left. And of course, this got spoiled. Wonder Woman ends up popping up at the end of this movie. It ends up, because as the wizard says, there's no gods left, and we need a god to power up the staff. I knew right away. I was like, okay, Wonder Woman's going to come in, because again, they spoiled that in the TV spot that I initially ended up seeing. When I heard about it, I was like, I didn't see it, but I heard about it. But then when I ended up seeing it after, I was like, oh my god, I can't believe WB didn't just take down this TV spot after it initially got out, but they're just gonna keep letting it run on TV and just keep letting it spoil more people. And it was really, I feel like that was their desperate attempt on the fact of they knew that this movie was charted not to do as well as the first movie, and they knew a lot of the people are kind of confused on what they're trying to do with DC right now, that they had to bring in a regular character and a kind of like a legacy character of the Justice League to like make this movie money, which like I said, it really annoyed me because I still gasped when he's like, we need the god to power up the staff, and we see Wonder Woman, it's playing her theme song. She ends up grabbing the staff, ends up slamming it on the ground, and it ends up pretty much making flowers around the tree of eternity, and pretty much it brings back Billy. And Billy in this movie had a big obsession with Wonder Woman. Like, he had dreams about Wonder Woman. There was a funny moment where I thought he was actually going on a date with Wonder Woman, but it actually wasn't a date. It was Billy dreaming about going on a date with Wonder Woman as Shazam. And that was the message that the wizard tried sending out, because when he got when he tried grabbing this after the Daughters of Atlas forced him to put the staff together so that way they could start taking the powers away from the champions and stuff. He ended up getting a splinter. But he did that on purpose so he could take what little wood he could and what little magic he could to send a message to Billy through his dream. And it was weird because the wizard's face was projected onto Wonder Woman, and that shit looked goofy as hell. That was a funny sequence too. It was very disturbing, but very funny at the same time. I think I was just so unexpected. So as it kept going on, the bit, I was like, oh my god, this is actually really getting weird. And like I said, there was a lot of weird jokes that were again, cringy, but cringy at the same time, where it was of course, his obsession with Wonder Woman. I thought that was kind of just cringy and funny. And of course, Freddy, kind of, when he met, Anthea, but I don't think, it was just Anne. I think that was her name. She was going by Anne, for short. And, he just was so shocked the girl was talking to him. So he kept as she said, oh, you want to walk me to class after, dealing with the bullies? He's like, yes. Or he's like, no. He's like, I'm just kidding. I do. It was cringy and goofy, but it really got cringy when he's like, Freddy, he just screams his name, Freddy, when she says her name. he says, my name's Freddy, or he's like, Freddy. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, like, my name is Freddy. Like, it was shit like that was cringy, but it was expected for a nerdy kid that's talking to a pretty girl, or a pretty girl that's talking to a nerdy kid. It was expected. So I was like, I don't know, like, some jokes were cringy and weird, but I still laughed at them. And the best part, like I said, the best two jokes were the Gatorade joke in that moment where, like, Billy's letting the names, Billy's, like, accidentally giving the names out on the paper because the pen won't stop when Billy says stop, when he says period, and expecting the pen to stop. It kept writing down what Billy was saying to everybody else around the room and saying their names. That whole part was funny, and of course the wizard calling Freddy freebies was hilarious. Those are probably the two funniest moments of the movie. Freddy with the wizard, and of course Freddy being captured, and them trying to force the name out of him, and them getting the note that says everybody's name accidentally because Freddy forgot to tell the pen to stop at period. Those were the two best moments, funny moments of the movie, and the best action part of the movie was the end part of the movie, definitely. But we definitely now got to talk about the end credit and the post credit, because even though the Wonder Woman thing already got me confused, because I'm like, I thought Gal Gadot was done being Wonder Woman. Was this made before? Was this made like before James Gunn and Peter Safran came in, or was that kind of or did they reshoot that one sequence because they want to let us know now that Gal Gadot is officially staying as Wonder Woman? I don't know, and that part really got me confused. And again, I still gasped, but I knew she was coming. Like, I was like, oh, I was still like, but I was like, I knew she was coming at the same time. I don't know why I still gasped, but I still did. But the end credit and the post credit. The end credit I thought was dumb, but it alludes to a third film, which I'll talk about in a minute. And it goes back to why I said, like, it goes back to, like, about who, like, why I thought the first, actually, it alludes to, like, me saying I like the first villain of the movie, and what that means for the end credit, and what that leads to, like, and what that alludes to a third movie, if we'll even get a third movie. But the post credit was Harcourt and John from Peacemaker pretty much going to recruit Billy, but not recruit Billy for the Justice League, because right away they're going to recruit Billy, and she's like, oh, I heard that he's a little bit of a child or whatever, but you know Amanda Waller said he's really strong, and like and we need to recruit him. And on them, or like, I think they mentioned Waller or whatever, but it gets to the point where, like, they said, oh, we're here to recruit you for the Justice. And he's like, oh, yes, I've been waiting for this. Oh, yes, Justice League, or Justice, yeah, I'm in. And she's like, no, Justice Society. And he's like, oh, I think we can come up with better names. And he starts looking up, like, different names online, Billy. But it already, that part confused the shit out of me, because I was like, okay, I know James Gunn wants to keep Peacemaker a part of his new universe. Any project that's his, he wants to keep. I find that ironic, but he wants to do that. He wants to keep the Suicide Squad stuff. He wants to keep that in the new universe. He wants to keep Peacemaker in the new universe. I'm confused because since you are keeping those now, did you put this end credit in because you want to tell us that Billy is coming back, and the whole Shazam family, or just Billy is coming back? Or just Zachary Levi is coming back and Billy is coming back. If Zachary Levi is going to be coming back as Shazam going forward, because you're going to recruit, because this Peacemaker team is going to recruit him for the Justice Society, aka the Justice Society that we saw in Black Adam. So does that automatically mean we're going to be seeing Noah Centineo again as Atom Smasher, the girl that played Cyclone again? Does it mean we're going to be getting The Rock back as Black Adam again, because he was in, like, the Justice Society was involved in Black Adam? So does that automatically mean that that's all, like, gonna follow over to the new universe, and that like, I'm just confused on that. Like, what does that mean? Or are they just trying to say that, okay, like, the only one that's coming over is Zachary Levi as Shazam, and we're going to ignore the Shazam family, they're not going to be involved anymore, and we're going to ignore the whole Black Adam part, but the Justice Society is going to be coming over as well to the new DC universe? I don't know. These end credits confuse the shit out of me, because I don't know if these were put here before James Gunn and Peter Safran came in, or they were put in after, so he wanted to sum up in the end credit and post credit what's going to be happening going forward. Because automatically I will hate that if Zachary Levi comes over as Shazam, but the whole Shazam family doesn't come over as well. Like, they're picking and choosing. I'll hate that shit, because it's like, I don't buy that at the end of this movie the Shazam family got their powers back. I mean, and Billy would just be a part of the Justice Society, but the Shazam family wouldn't be a part of the Justice Society. That doesn't make any sense. If they wanted to do something like that, I think that they shouldn't have got their powers back, and Billy should have been the only one to get his powers back, and then it would have made sense for them to recruit him for the Justice Society, because it's like, okay, that's believable if you just want to bring him over, but you don't want to bring anybody else over, any of the family members, because they don't have powers anymore. That would have made sense. I'm confused on what this alludes to. Does this mean that Black Adam, like, does it mean that we're going to be seeing the Justice Society again, the ones that we saw in Black Adam? Does it mean we're going to see Black Adam again? Does it mean we're going to have Zachary Levi join the Justice Society in an upcoming movie? What does this mean? Are we going to see the Shazam family again? Are we going to get a third film? Especially that's what we're going to be talking about right now, is the end credit of this movie is seeing Mark Strong back as Dr. Savannah. What does this mean? And he's back with the stupid caterpillar, which I think is very dumb. I don't know much about the caterpillar, but I know it's like a villain in the comics, I think. I thought that thing was dumb in the first movie when we saw the caterpillar. I can't even speak. When we saw the caterpillar, I thought that was dumb. So seeing it here and waiting all the way down into the end credits to see this end credit sequence with, again, Dr. Savannah. It's been, I guess, 2 years he's been in prison or something like that, and he's complaining about to the caterpillar, saying like, okay, like you're back now. What took you so long? It's been 2 years or whatever. And then the caterpillar ends up leaving again and doesn't tell him the plan, and he's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just wait. Is that, I think if that was a dumb way of the writer of the director saying like, oh, like, you know, we were supposed to get him back as the villain in the second movie, or along with Black Adam or whatever or something like that, but it didn't work out. So we're not quite sure if we're gonna get a third movie. So we're gonna make a joke saying, oh, I guess I'll wait another 2 years again to hear if we're getting, you know what I mean, like alluding to the fact of like, oh, you know, we just have to wait 2 more years because we're not quite sure if, like, you know, we want to keep that story along and keep pushing it just in case we get a third film. I'm confused. I don't know what the point of these end credits were if we don't really know where we are in the DC universe and what's going to be brought over and what's not going to be brought over, who's going to be recast, who's not going to be recast. It's just confusing. In general, this movie was confusing. Even though I really enjoyed it, it doesn't really make much sense on the fact that I always have a problem that the Justice League exists in this universe. How come none of the Justice League members showed up when this was going down in San Francisco? It ends up becoming a problem. See, the thing I really love about, I'm going to mention the MCU real quick, is that in the MCU is that we kind of know where the characters are at in the MCU, and that's why we don't ask the question, oh, why didn't this character come over to help this character? Because we know what they're doing in their own movie, what they're dealing with around the time that something is going on. That's what I love. In the DC universe right now, that's not the case. The Justice League aren't doing anything, so we automatically think, where the hell are the Justice League? That's my problem, and I hope they fix that shit in James Gunn and Peter Safran's universe, that we can't ask that question, where the hell are the Justice League? Because it ends up becoming a problem. It ends up ruining stories for DC, because we always ask the question, we know the Justice League aren't doing anything, where the hell are they? They exist. They got to fix that, and I'm hoping that that's what he fixes going forward in his universe. But other than that, guys, I'm really curious to know, what did you guys think about this movie? Did you like this movie? Did you not like this movie? Like I said, overall, I had a really damn good of a time watching this movie. I definitely think it's DC's first one of this year. I don't think Flash is going to be good. I'm not seeing the Flash, but I don't think it's going to be good. I don't think Aquaman's going to be good either, because the people that got to see the movie early, like the early like screenings of that movie, like the people said it just was not good. For the first test screenings that they had for the movie, people like walked out, and I think in the first couple of minutes of that movie. Doesn't surprise me. And on top of that, I do have high hopes for Blue Beetle, because Xolo Mandueña is in it, and he's a really good actor, and I feel like, you know, he probably will carry that movie just because of who he is and how good of an actor he is. So I have pretty high hopes that movie is going to be good. But like I said, this is definitely this is definitely a big win for DC, especially this year. On top of that, it kind of will feel like an unwin if they did the post credit and they did the end credit and they did the things that they did in this movie for nothing, I'll feel like, okay, like, what was the point of this movie? What was the point of the end credit and all that stuff? I'll feel like, okay, like, it's a win for DC, but at the same time, it's not, because it's not a part of the universe. Same as how I think it's a win. It's I call it DC, just in general, DC wins that they did Joker and Batman, but that's not a part of the universe. This will be a thing where it's like, if this isn't a part of the universe and this is just it, and this is the last time we're going to see these characters and see these actors playing these characters, it'll just be a solo win for DC. It won't even be a universe win. But honestly, I don't know. I mean, like I said, guys, it's like, I don't know. It's sad because it's like, it really would suck if we don't get to see a third movie and we don't get to see more stuff with these characters, because it's like, I think that, like, what they got going on right now with the Shazam stuff is fun, but it's like, I don't know. I'm a little worried about what does those end credit and post credit mean? Like, what do they mean? I feel like you can't bring in James, like, I feel like it must have been James Gunn making that end credit. I mean, that post credit with John and Hardcourt coming in to recruit, Shazam. I feel like that had to have been him to confirm that, yes, like, we will see Shazam again, played by Zachary Levi, because Zachary Levi didn't even know. It was up in the air even for him. If he still probably doesn't even know if he's even going to come back. Maybe he knows now, but when he was on live like last year, he did not know if he was coming back or not. When all the news was coming out about people not coming back as the characters that they were playing before, so it's like, I don't even know. I don't even know if he knows. But like, it's just very confusing right now with DC, and that's one of the things I really hate, is that it's so confusing right now, and it really, really shouldn't. Like, just come out and say who's going to be back and who's not going to be back. Like, you already told us some people, like Henry and Ben Affleck, aren't coming back, but telling us that Gal Gadot's not coming back, but yet she ends up showing up in this movie, is that the last time we're going to see her, or is she back for good now? Like, I need answers, because this shit's annoying. But other than that, guys, like I said, let me know how you guys like this movie. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you think this movie was better than the first movie? I'm really curious to know. Did you guys like these villains more than did you guys like Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren as the villains of this movie, or did you guys like Mark Strong as the villain of the first movie? I'm really curious to know, like, which villains you like the most, because like I said, I definitely prefer Mark Strong's villain more. I feel like he's a little bit more memorable than Lucy Liu and Helen Mirren as the villains, as the Daughters of Atlas and the villains of this movie. I just feel like they just weren't as memorable as like Mark Strong's villain was. I think he was a little bit more memorable, at least in my opinion. I'm really curious to know what you guys think about that. But I do think that this movie was the final battle of this movie was a lot stronger than the first movie's final battle. And I just feel like, in general, I feel like this movie just felt like it had a bigger budget and felt like it had a lot more going for it. And I just, like I said, I feel like, just the connection of all the kids, all the kids and what they were going through, and then when they kind of do their own thing, I feel like it was just very intriguing. So I don't know, I just feel like the story was a little bit stronger in this movie than I think it was in the first movie, and I feel like I feel like the acting was a lot better from the kids in this movie, because I feel like I said, because they're grown-ups now, essentially, at this point. They're like young adults at this point, and they're a little bit more seasoned in acting. I mean, they have a lot more projects underneath their belts. A lot of these a lot of them did. A lot of these young adults, have a lot more acting underneath their belts. So I just feel like the acting overall was really good in this movie, and I really enjoyed it. But guys, yet again, that was the video. Hope everybody has a great day, a safe day, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.